Hi, it's me again with Corel Draw Tips and Tricks, and this person sent me this file with some other files, and I just made a video on the other file, and I don't know exactly what they're wanting to do with this, but this is a vector file, and it's pretty clean, and if you take your, make sure there's no white object, go put that yellow box in the back of the page, and you can kind of see it's a vector file. Couple of things you can do with this. First of all, I'd set your nudge factor on 0, 0 because that's going to come into play in here in just a minute. But let's say you wanted to cut this out, but this part is missing. And what you could do, go up to Object, Group, and Ungroup, select it all, and then grab the boundary tool. But before I do that, I'm going to set my nudge factor on 2 inches. So I can nudge it out of the way. Now I'm going to select it, use the boundary tool, and I'm going to move it out of the way. You would not want to cut that out. Well, I wouldn't think you would. How could you make it look better? Well, you could take the 3-point curve line, and let me zoom in here a little bit. 3-point curve line, and go from the extremity to that node down to there, and then just kind of move it till you get to like the shape of the skull. Now take your virtual segment delete key and delete that part. And I'm not going to change the very bottom of it. You know, it's jagged and could be, but we evidently didn't have any leaks. So what you can do now is take the Smart Fill tool, fill that in, then left click, right click in red, make sure it's a hairline, and nudge it over to your skull, and now that's going to cut out. And you could actually put a little shading in that white part maybe with some light gray just so it kind of show up. But that's personal preference. Now another thing I started thinking about doing, I like just to play around with stuff, and as most of you know, we've got our skull in the center of the page. I hit P, put it in the center. Okay, I had it ungrouped. So group it together, Control G, and hit P, where we are. Now I'm going to take a 2-point line, holding down the control button so it's perpendicular, and hit P. Now I can take my virtual segment delete key and swipe down as long as I stay on this side of that line. Now I'm going to have some residue, but it doesn't really matter. You could probably be easier if you turn this line. I always draw in a hairline, so double click on this and make this a hairline. And that way, we're going to make it red too. That way you can actually see a little better where you're over the boundary, and you can get a little closer to that line. You don't have to get it all, because I'm going to show you what we're going to do in here in just a second. If you do get it all, it's going to be a little bit better, but it's not. See, we took away part of his teeth, so maybe you want to leave that, you know, right there. And I'm not saying they'll ever do this, but it's just an option. And it won't hurt to have some of these spots actually left over, because I'm going to show you here in just a second what you could do. Whoop, I went over the line. So let's just leave that rest of that part. Let's get a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more down here. Oh, we got rid of some of that shading. So let's do that. Let's leave that. Let's take our line now and hit delete and delete that line. And here's why I changed your duplicate distance to 0, 0, because we're going to Control D and make a duplicate while holding down the control button. Mirror it. Now you can see we got a split there because we had some trash. So what you could do now is set your nudge factor on something less, like 0.01. Grab that side and just slowly nudge it till that line goes away. And you've got a totally different skull. Let's see if we can't use the boundary tool now. Nudge the boundary tool out of the way. And it's a good, even, change it to a red hairline to cut. Of course, the person that has this is a Glowforge, so I have no clue. I don't have any knowledge of them whatsoever. but then just nudge that back. So that would actually engrave and cut. I hope that helped a little bit. Thank you for watching.